So, the first episode of Gangsta aired not too long ago, and it was really highly anticipated due to its mature presentation and lack of the normal anime stuff. We rarely get to see serious anime about this topic, so it's always exciting to see a new one come along. For the record, I quite enjoyed the first episode of Gangsta. I think it actually has a lot of potential and introduced quite a few interesting themes. I did have one major problem with it though, the pacing. In an action series like Gangsta, pacing is as important as anything. I'm mainly talking about the overall pacing of the episode, but even the pacing of scenes and shots is extremely important. For a series that entices the viewer with its violence, weapons and hard-looking gangsters, it's important that you make the first episode as thrilling as you promised it to be. And like I said, for the most part, Gangsta delivered this very well. The world was introduced really nicely and the characters didn't seem too over the top. The overall feel of the show was just right. I even took some extra interest into some of the plot points they brought up, something that I very rarely do. The problem I had with Gangsta was the pacing of the episode. Like I said, the pacing should match the feel of the show, and this episode just didn't do that. It was a combination of a lack of action, too much dialogue and dragging out certain scenes. To be honest, the whole first episode could have quite easily been condensed into 10 minutes, and it wouldn't have lost any of its impact. Sure, it had to make its main plot points stand out, but apart from that, they seemed to just be wasting a lot of time doing nothing. Valuable time they could have spent on extending the action scene. Let's take a look at a few similar anime series. Take Black Lagoon and Gungrave as examples, two series that I believe successfully pull off the gangster genre. Let's look at the pacing of each episode. I think a good way to gauge this is by looking at the amount of action in each episode. The action in Black Lagoon's first episode tots up to just under 5 minutes. About 5.5 minutes for Gungrave. Gangsta's only amounts to just over 1 minute. Instantly you can tell exactly why Gangsta felt poorly paced. And these weren't the only differences. Black Lagoon's first episode managed to provide a whole chunk of background information for the main character. It introduced us to multiple key characters and multiple key locations. It gave us a good taste of what the series was going to be like, and what the action was going to be like, all in just 20 minutes. Gangsta failed to do half of this in the same amount of time. It only really introduced two sets of characters, our mains and the police. Even at that, there was no explanation or prologue to explain how things work. What they needed to do was spend less time on some of the scenes. Speeding up the pace is to show us more. Gungrave used a similar pacing to Black Lagoon, albeit a bit more creative. So there's a lot of action, there was multiple characters, and we were given a good taste of what the show's main plot points and themes are going to be. Gangsta was just too slow for the action anime it was trying so hard to introduce us to. I felt like we barely scratched what the series has to offer, and I don't think that's a good thing. The show needs to pick up its pace as soon as possible if it wants to be a successful action series. But don't get me wrong, many of the other elements of the show were pulled off fantastically, but I felt the pacing really brought down the first episode. So clearly, pacing is a massive factor in anime. But is it as important in every other genre? I don't think so. Of course it's a factor, but in many genres pacing has a lot less importance than action. Take Slice of Life for example. Many of my favourite Slice of Life shows have very little going on, and for the most part that's intentional. There's no need to have a certain pace with them. You can spend 1 minute or 20 minutes on a certain event and the outcome will be the same. So what about romance? Again, not as important as action, though it does have a fair weight. Romance is about progression, or regression, so it is important that events happen at a regular pace. There's nothing worse than a romance that doesn't go anywhere. Millennium Actress is a movie that I think is one of the best examples of how to use pace. It's a movie that flies through different genres, tones and settings to create a collage of film. This is one of the few movies that's managed to capture life so perfectly. Normally movies that attempt this become fragmented and rushed, but Millennium Actress done this with such grace and ease. I won't spoil anything, but the movie used really smart editing cuts to blend scenes together, removing the need for transitions so it could flow through the movie without losing its fast pace, while at the same time staying consistent. So pacing is a really big part of anime, but sometimes it's a very small part. So what are your opinions on the matter? I'd really love to hear them in the comments. Of course, if you enjoyed this, please do click the like button and share it around. And of course you can subscribe to my channel and check out some of the videos on the screen. So thank you very much for watching.